Hey everyone, welcome back to the Successful Working Parents podcast, where normally we interview working parents on how they're able to balance everything and still thrive. But we've been shaking things up a little bit in year two. We've been talking to working parents about the family dynamics and parenting decisions in movies. It's been a lot of fun, and today's conversation is about The Karate Kid, the 2010 version, not the original. Although if you haven't seen it, they are pretty much identical. 2010 version is definitely not as good, but it's got Jackie Chan in it, so we'll take it. I'm joined by Matt Percia. He is a corporate health and well-being consultant. We talk about encouraging your kids to be healthier, supporting them when they're having a tough time, and helping to teach them get up after they fail. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy the episode, please share with a friend. Anyway, on to the show. Welcome back to the Successful Working Parents podcast. Today we are talking about the 2010 hit, The Karate Kid, a remake of the original classic. My guest today is Matt Percia. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey, Tone. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, of course. If you would, please give yourself a quick introduction.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Matt. I'm a Wellbeing ninja, if you would. So this movie is right up my alley. I work in the employer well-being space, so I consult with employers on programs and strategies to improve the health, happiness, and productivity of their workforce. I've been in the industry for over 15 years now in a variety of capacities. So anything wellness related and talking to individuals, teams, and organizations.
And you have two kids, right?
I have two kids, yeah. One boy, one girl, 6 and 8.
Awesome. So when I had reached out to you about doing a movie for the podcast, you suggested a few sports themed movies, which I thought was great. What's your relationship to the Karate Kid franchise?
Yeah, I think the original Karate Kid was made in 1984,
yeah.
Which was the year I was born. So there you go. There's a relationship right there. But I studied martial arts when I was young. So
Okay.
6th, 7th, 8th grade is one of those years. I don't remember exactly is when I started. And we did so as a family. So both my parents, my brother, my sister, we all did it together. Over the years, we 4 out of the 5 of us reached the rank of black belt.
Okay.
Martial arts, karate has always been a big part of our life as a family. And I think there's a lot of life lessons you can learn from that specifically. I haven't had a chance of, prior to organizing this, see the newer remake of the original. So I thought it was a great opportunity to dive into that and see what the differences are between the original and then how we can take those life lessons and apply it to ourselves and our families as we were parents.
Now, were you one of the 4 out of the 5?
Of course, I wouldn't tell the story if I wasn't.
Well, you didn't clarify. I thought maybe you said that way for that reason. I don't know. I was making sure. What martial art was it?
It was Tang Sudo,
Okay.
which is a Korean martial arts. It's where essentially Taekwondo came from.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I don't know if I told you. So did you do anything still today?
No, and I don't, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I told you, but I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay.
So I was really enjoying this as well because I've also been thinking about like when my daughter gets older, like what I would have her do. So
yeah,
I thought that this is really relevant for me as well. Also, I'm a huge fan of the original movie, and the show Cobra Kai is just such a great it's a good show and it's just like good like nostalgia. Like they're doing a really good job of like bringing back all the hits. I think they've brought back like every single character at this point.
Yeah, I agree. And the series itself is really interesting because it does take a little spin on the original, and you can see it from a different perspective of individuals, which is pretty cool. So I'm a fan of that show as well.
Yeah. I mean, this movie is a beat for beat remake of the original, more or less. We'll get into it, but that was a takeaway for me. There's really like 3 themes I think are really relevant to this conversation. One is just trying to instill the importance of health and discipline into the next generation, into your kids. The other one was like really being able to get back up after you fail. That was a really big theme as well. And then just in general, like how do you support your kids when they're having a tough time or dealing with a new environment? I had the experience of moving when I was a kid as well. So I this was hitting home for me too. But the movie basically kicks off classic, coming of age story. We have young Jaden Smith, who I feel like was destined to have more of a career than he did. I think he's kind of like decided not to be much of an actor, but I think when he was a kid, it looked like it was going to happen for him. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, I
he's
agree with
he's
that.
playing Dre. The movie opens up. The first thing that took me by surprise was like he's marking these milestones on his wall, and then one of them was when his father passed away, which I thought was like an odd. I guess that's their way of telling the audience, but I just thought it was a weird thing to put on your wall, like between your first home run and like your first like you know A+ report card. I thought that was a little strange.
Yeah, I do think it's really looking at life's um, uh, milestones in your life. So I think that kind of sets the stage for him to be like, it's very impactful memory of his.
Yeah,
Would have loved to see them maybe give a little backstory there, because to your point, that was like the only reference of his father, not
yeah,
being in the picture.
yeah. Agreed. Um, and yeah, they're moving to China. The mom is moving them to China. She's got a new job there. Her job is moving her there. I mean, my mom moved us to Jersey, like 30 miles away, and I thought that was tough. But I think moving to China would be a tough one. And I think the mom is kind of sort of painted as like not the villain, but she's not very like understanding, at least at first, right? I feel like she's not doing a good job of like she's kind of forcing to speak Chinese in the plane. I don't think she's really understanding like where he's coming from.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. And there was, again, very little context as to why they were forced to move, like what decisions were being made. So I think it was a fairly long movie, I would say,
Oh
but
yeah,
they tried to like gloss over some of those key points, which may have made it more impactful emotionally, and to get in the the mindset and the shoes of young Jaden, if you will.
yeah. I mean that was the thing. It was like a lot. It was really remaking the movie, but there was just oddly more filler in some places. But then yeah,
Yeah.
none of this backstory in others, and it's just like I had that as like one of my like kind of like plot holes. Just like what job is this that she had to go to China for? Right? It's just like it just seems like there'd be another job somewhere else.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they go to China and he has school the next day. So here we're instantly kind of like plunged into it, and this is when we really start the similar beats of the first story, right? He meets the girl. She also asked to touch his hair, which I thought was like why like I don't know if you caught that, but it was like
Yeah. Oh yeah.
like this is 2010. This isn't like that 1982. Like I don't know what that was about. He runs into the town bully Chang. This kid's terrifying. Also, like this little kid is a badass. I don't know how old he really was in the movie, but he was freaking me out.
Yeah, and it looked like there was a big difference in size and age between the two, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So I think that was something that was different than the original. Is everyone in the original seemed to be around the same age, right?
yeah,
So that was something that was like, well, is this kid really the same grade or same age as Jaden was, and like how are they interacting when this guy looks like a much bigger version
yeah,
and someone who is very intimidating from the
yeah,
start?
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't pick a fight with this little guy.
No, not at all.
It's a rough start to being a new kid. Again, I
Yeah.
had experience moving. I didn't have this experience, but like you get off a plane, you get beat up in the park, and then you're going to school. Like it's a really rough start to the week. So when it comes to bullying, like I don't know if you've had any experiences with this yet with your kids, but I think it's something I'm thinking a lot about having a daughter. Right? Is like how do you kind of empower them to stand up for themselves, but also not resort to violence? Like, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's really important to talk about, what we do with our hands when we get emotional. We talk about physical violence, right?
Yeah,
Physical bullying. So I know my son's a little more aggressive when he gets frustrated and not understanding how to use your words to express your feelings, and that sometimes tends to resort to wanting to hit or use your hands, which you know talking through that and using that as a lesson in how to express your emotions in a verbal way, and to kind of avoid confrontation but have a conversation around that. I think that's one. I think bullying happens, unfortunately. We've all had some level of experience with it, I think.
hmm
And how we dealt with it as kids, and it happens as kids or as adults, is what we try and teach our kids how to
Yeah.
deal with it. So I think there's definitely challenges there, but really, wanting to understand and talk about what happened, what people are saying, how you're interacting, and understand that from both sides of this, the perspective is really important, and really talking through them. I think that's where you get the best responses and results, versus just telling kids what they shouldn't do, because they're going to ask, like, well, why? Like, why shouldn't I do this, or why can't I do this? So
Yeah.
really having the conversation and making an open dialogue, I think, is extremely important.
Do you have your kids in any martial arts yet? Do you plan to?
No, my we tried. My son, he had a birthday party at a karate place across the street and had a great time. And then we took him for
Mhm.
a trial class, and he liked it. But he's so much into other sports right now too. Like, it's hard to get him to do so many other things. So
Sure.
I don't want to force anything on them. I think martial arts, karate, and sports in general, having some outlet where you're doing one of those things, I think it's extremely important, from like learning how to work out well with others, being on a team, discipline. So all those components that we talk about with martial arts specifically, I think there's a level with it within team sports as well. So I think as long as you have one, and then gravitating towards, maybe at some point when they get a little bit older, then we can introduce them and see if they gravitate towards what they learn.
Yeah.
Right now, it's not something that is really of interest to them.
Right. Gotcha. So back in the movie, we're we're really following the same plot because the bully Cruz is terrorizing Dre. This is exactly like Johnny Lawrence and his friends are doing.
Yeah.
And then his mom, he asked his mom to take him to like a kung fu place. By the way, this movie should be called The Kung Fu Kid because this is kung fu, not karate. But
Yes, absolutely.
yeah,
One of the
yeah.
biggest, I guess, plot holes, if you will. It's two totally separate things.
Yeah, I don't know why they did that, but yeah, it's kung fu. But
Yeah,
yeah, he asked him on to take him to the kung fu place, and of course, the bullies are all there, and it's like it's a bad place, and the bullies are all there learning. Just like what was it? It was called like something dragon, which is similar to Cobra Kai. It was like flying dragon, I think.
yeah, I think that was right. Yeah,
Um, yeah, and the bullies see him straight out of the original when Johnny Lawrence sees him at Cobra Kai when he's looking for lessons. So then he kind of walks away. And the mom and the son have this moment where I thought was interesting because she's not really fully understanding how he feels, and she's just like, hey, there's nothing left for us in Detroit. Like this is our home now. And I think that's a lot for a kid to absorb. I mean, he's like, mom, like I had stuff going on in Detroit, like I don't speak this language, and they're trying to touch my hair. So could we maybe reconsider where we live, right? I think that um trying to kind of understand your kids' emotions when they're dealing with something is something that you're hearing more about now. And I think that it's just kind of like a little bit more of an old school approach to just be like, look, you kind of have to deal with this, and this is the way it is.
yeah. It seems like when they start having those conversations about, why do we move here? I don't like it. There's very little back and forth conversation and
Yeah.
asking questions to really get to understand and address what the root is. So I think whether that leads to the plot of the story itself, for him to find the mentor that he did, in Jackie Chan, that could be, a reason why they did that. But yeah, I think when we're talking about parenting in the real life, in the real world, having those conversations and understanding, well, like, why, like, what do you feel like was back there that you have back there that you don't have here?
Right.
And I think it was a huge drastic change. I think in the original, it was they moved from like New Jersey to California. So
Yeah.
small, subtle cultural differences. And
Sure.
this one, they moved from, right, Detroit to
China.
China.
Yeah. Hong
So
Kong.
yeah,
Yeah.
huge difference right there.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of
Yeah. That's a
the
big.
nuances there. Yeah,
Yeah. That's a big jump. I get the sense that perhaps it was Detroit was too painful for the mom, and she,
yeah,
with the loss of the husband, and so she's kind of running and projecting it onto her son, who probably, I mean, they had a whole crew when they left. You saw the people they were saying goodbye to, so
yeah,
obviously he had stuff there, but what are you gonna do? So he pulls a prank on the bullies again, classic, right out of the Karate Kid. They start beating the crap out of him. He's saved by Mr. Han. We haven't even talked about Jackie Chan yet, but another huge part of my childhood was Jackie Chan. I mean, he's the goat to me when it comes to karate actors or martial arts actors.
yeah, for sure.
And that's really like this movie is essentially a remake of the original with better fight scenes. because Pat Morita didn't actually know karate, the Mr. Miyagi in the original movie, and so obviously Jackie Chan is pretty well versed, and so the fight scenes in this movie are pretty crazy, including this one where he saves Dre from the bullies.
Yeah, something really unique about that fight scene is he doesn't really hit anyone, right? The premise of kung fu and using your opponent as their own enemy, if you will,
Yeah,
and just kind of like throwing them around into each other and using one of the bad guys or hitting the other bad guy based on how he manipulates their movement. So I think if you look at it like that way too, there's a really big lesson right there, and how to use the style of fighting, not to attack your enemy, but using their aggression against them.
right. Yeah, I think that's a pretty big difference between karate and kung fu. I think they actually mentioned that in the
Yeah.
movie too, the difference. Um, and then he does his little like ancient Chinese healing. Now, in the first one, it was just Mr. Miyagi rubbing his hands together, which I don't think really would work. But this seemed to be a little more. He was actually doing cupping. I don't know if you saw that. I feel like
Yeah.
cupping is like all the rage now. But I was like, we have that here now. It was, I guess, an ancient Chinese healing technique that involves some cups.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then they confront the teacher, the Cobra Kai teacher. They agree to stop bullying until the tournament, and now Mr. Han agrees to train him. So we're kind of off to the races, and the stage is set for a classic Karate Kid showdown. I also didn't mention. I just want to say real quick, like he was trying to. They showed like Mr. Han was going to catch the fly with the chopsticks, which is also straight out of the original movie.
Yeah.
And then he just hits it with a fly swatter. So I thought that was funny too.
I think that was the funniest part of the movie right there. It's like you
Yeah,
knew what was going to come if you saw the original, and he
yeah,
just totally flipped the script there. So I thought that was funny.
yeah. I
And
mean,
then he proceeded to take the fly off the swatter with the chopsticks and then eat with the chopsticks.
right? Yeah.
So
I mean, it was a little bit like breaking the fourth wall. He basically was like, you saw the first one, right? Like,
yeah,
that was
yeah,
basically what he was doing.
yeah, yeah,
But I did enjoy that. Um, so yeah, classic scene that was too like the festival scene. I didn't need, right. This is where like the runtime is too long. I was trying to put my finger on like we agree the first one's better than this one, right?
Oh
The,
yeah,
the
for sure.
original. But I'm trying to think of why, because it is so similarly remade and the fighting is better. I think. Do you have any thoughts on why? Do you have reflect on that at all?
I think it was the storyline. Like they try to stay very true to the original and make some changes, but there wasn't as much of depth and emotion that was built in. So to the point that we mentioned about like not understanding what happened to the father at the beginning, the the mother kind of there was no like depth to her character. I don't think at all. It was
Yeah.
really focused on Dre or Jaden and his evolution. So I feel like it was a kind of a one dimensional storyline, if you will, and not really
Mhm.
getting the depth of character from anyone else. I don't know if you have any like additional thoughts or any.
No, I guess it's. I mean, that's. I think it had to have really been partially like the act. I mean, not the acting, but just the way the characters are developed. To your point, because yeah, it's so like they do everything the first movie did, and the fighting's pretty badass. So
Yeah,
it's just like yeah, there's just something about other than the long runtime. There's just something about it that just doesn't click in the same way. I mean, the first one is just such a classic.
yeah. I feel like the first one was more relatable. And looking at the first of all, I don't know how long the time is between like when he started learning kung fu to when the tournament actually was.
I had that as concern as well.
But
Yeah.
like, yeah, he's like a kung fu master by the end of the movie,
I
essentially,
mean,
and that's like,
these kids are throwing down, man. Like this is
yeah,
like, if you watch the original, like he's barely doing karate. Like he's just doing some. He's learned a few things. Like it's almost more believable, I guess, that because he's
yeah,
just like
yeah,
that might be part of it. And this is just like, I also think there's something about like the mysterious like old master in our world as opposed to like going there, like kind of took away the allure of it almost. It's like because they all kind of are similar, I guess. I think there's something
yeah,
more appealing about Mr. Miyagi being in America than Mr. Han being in China. That might have been part
yeah,
of it.
yeah. It very well could be. Yeah, I agree with that.
But we get the classic montage, but we're doing jacket on, jacket off instead of wax on, wax off.
Yeah,
Would this work? I mean, it's again, he's so good at kung fu just from that one movement.
Yeah, I think that's a hard thing to grasp too. I do like that using that movement because it was teaching him a lesson to really respect his mother, and I think
Yeah.
that's where that came from when he came into the new apartment the first time and just threw his jacket on the floor, and he continued to do so without hanging up. And so,
Yes.
like, I think that was a really unique component that Mr. Hans saw that and used that as a teaching lesson for both kung fu and for respecting your parents, if you will. But yeah, the application of that versus the wax on, wax off, paint the fence, I think is more far fetched.
Well, that's too. Yeah, I felt like that Mr. Miyagi had him do like three things, and then they applied like to three different things, three
Yeah.
different kinds of attacks and defenses. And this was like jacket on, jacket off, kind of did everything. So it was a little bit more. Maybe that didn't click as well either. But so with you and your kids and their sports and athletic endeavors, what kind of role are you playing? Are you doing like the drilling, with your kid on the weekends, or like are you doing like the coaching of the teams? Like, kind of where do you fall in that?
Oh, I hate to say it, I don't want to coach at all.
Okay.
I think
Because you're just get you fired up, or just
no, I think there's a couple different reasons. One, I feel like kids need to learn from other people. And I think everyone coaching teachers have all different learn teaching styles, and I think it's good for the kids to like be able to learn from all those different styles. At this age, I feel like it is more so babysitting to an extent. It's
yeah.
to, and that's not something I really want to do.
Well, it sounds like a lot of work. That's probably a lot of
Yeah,
work.
yeah, and I think they also need more emotional support in the background. So more of acting a coach beyond the coach. Like their
Hmm.
coaches there right now are there to teach them just the basic skills of sports, maybe how to work together. But they're those types of they're volunteer coaches. They don't have a lot of them don't really focus on like the building of the self-esteem and like kind of more of those when I think of coach, more like those type of life coaching moments and
Yeah.
learning from. And I think being in the thick of things and being a coach, you can't see that for every individual that's playing. So being a bystander, if you will, watching and seeing how my son or daughter interacts with other people on the team or other coaches or other, the opposing team, you can really figure out like, okay, what do we need to learn from this, right? So I think it's more of like on the background and say like be the emotional support, but also teaching some of those other things that come very important with being on a team.
Yeah. So, as a well-being ninja, when you had kids, like, how did you make sure that you instilled some sense of enjoying fitness in them, or some sense of like health consciousness? I mean, there's something I've been thinking a lot about, and I'm curious. Did you do it actively? Or just hope it would happen and kind of encourage it when it did?
The so both my wife and I are very active. We like being outside. We like playing sports. We love exercising, working out, whether it's on a Peloton, lifting weights, doing yoga. So for us, it's really modeling the behaviors versus teaching the behaviors. So like, I think the kids always see me work out Saturday, Sunday mornings. When
Hmm.
we're at home, and they see me do it. They see my wife and their mom go and jump on a bike and do exercise. So I think it really is, um, you know, exposing them to it without forcing them to do it, and showing that it is fun and beneficial to you and your life, and hopefully that they pick it up when they're younger, and then over time the things that they don't pick up, how can you then teach them why it's important to do those things.
Yeah. Now, when your son becomes like a star athlete in his teens, are you going to become like more fanatical and like have him, out there at 6 a.m., doing suicide sprints and stuff like that? Or are you going to try to hold back on that?
I've thought about it a lot, and I really think it depends on what he wants to get out of it,
Yeah.
right? Like how much is he interested in developing those sports? Right now, he loves just sports. Anything with a ball,
Yeah.
he wants to do. So to be like, doing drills and practicing at this age, I find it counterintuitive or
Yeah. No
counterproductive.
conditioning drills yet.
Yeah, exactly. But it's more like, let's go outside and play. What ball do you want to use today? What do you want to
Yeah.
do? And try and find just again, you're building skills by practicing, but it's not in a formal session, and you're really doing what you want to do. And I think that's where, where healthy lifestyle and fitness really needs to be a part, is just, doing, having fun with it and not think of it as a chore or something you have to do to be healthier.
Gotcha. So jumping back into the movie, we have the Mr. Han takes him on the like on a trip to the countryside to kind of see, I guess, kind of where he learned. This is essentially what they did in the second Karate Kid. I don't know if you saw that one, but
Yeah, yeah,
again, probably why this movie's too long is they've crammed in a Karate Kid 2 into the first one.
yeah.
But it does give you more glimpses of the culture, and we see the dancing with the snake and drinking the magic water, and we have another great training montage. I mean, this movie has some classic training montages, like Rocky style. So I did enjoy that. I think there's like 3 of them. So we have another really good training montage. Then we have a montage of the date. Again, probably this more context we didn't need, but we're seeing the montage of the date that they're on because his love interest is stressed about her audition. I do want to make a quick aside to say that I also once ate a scorpion when I was traveling in Southeast Asia. I don't know if you
Ooh,
saw the scorpions. Yeah.
yeah.
What's the strangest thing that you ever ate?
I, I, I don't know. I don't think I'm very risque when it comes to eating strange things.
Okay.
I think the most unique thing was conch. So
Okay.
the shellfish, that's
Yeah.
probably like the most unique thing that
Okay.
I wouldn't like go and order from a menu.
Yeah. I mean, that's like
So
kind
yeah,
of like that's like a clam, though, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's
All
kind of
right.
boring when it comes to that, I guess.
I'll give it. I'll give it. I'll give it. It's no scorpion, but I'll give it to you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's more adventurous than a vegetable.
I mean, I've had crickets in like
Okay.
they make some snack out of crickets. It's supposed to be a high protein snack. I tried
Yeah.
that. That was a little odd. So
I think
maybe that.
I think
That's
that's legit. Yeah.
okay.
I give you that one. Um, then he makes. They're busy eating scorpions, and he makes. Her name's Mai Ying. She makes her late for her audition. Her parents say you can't be friends anymore, so we have a little bit of a conflict there. And again, similar, really the same storyline. We have Mr. Han getting blacked out, drunk, and destructive on the anniversary of the tragic death of his family, just like Mr. Miyagi did.
Yeah,
And then they do have kind of a nice moment together where Jaden's kind of helping him kind of pick the pieces up and just find some way to move on. So I feel like at this point it's just set up as like everything that the first movie did, but just again, just like some kind of heart and soul is missing to it. But we have the second training montage. He's doing some pretty badass stuff again, right? Like this is
yeah,
I don't know what the time frame is, but he's doing some really intense things. And then I really like the quote, life will knock us down, but we can choose whether or not to get back up. This is another life lesson you really hope to be able to instill in your kids. I don't know if you have anything to say about that. I feel like you kind of that's one where you almost have to kind of wait for them to have those moments of
yeah.
failure, right, and show them that it's okay. I don't know, something I would appreciate more growing up. I feel like I was more like kind of encouraged to like do really well, and there wasn't really a lot of talk of like, well, what did you learn from when you failed?
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a huge part of learning and resilience, if you will. Um, and it's hard to really parent for, I think, because you have to let them fail, right?
Yeah,
They have to fail in some way, shape, or form, and then you need to, as a parent, recognize, what that lesson is, or like how to address that, and you might not see the failure firsthand either. So it could be challenging there, but I think that's a huge component and a real moral of the entire movie, if you will, is when you get knocked down and beaten up, it's how you get up and respond to that and move forward is what's really defines you and creates yourself as a character.
yeah. Which is the same lesson that Rocky tried to instill in his son in one of the
Yeah.
later Rockies. I think it
Oh
was
yeah,
Rocky
for sure.
6. Okay, so then Mr. Han helps Dre apologize to Mei Ying's father in Chinese. He helps him write a little apology letter, and they kind of make up. And then we have the tournament, classic Karate Kid tournament. Except again, this is like straight. This is I don't know what skill level this is supposed to be, but these are like kids, and these kids are throwing down. Like this is crazy. I don't know. I can't imagine this is what it would really look like.
Oh, definitely not.
Yeah.
Not at that level. I think that's more like like demo sparring is something you have to choreograph.
Yeah.
Never been to like a any type of martial art or a fighting tournament. It's more closely aligned to what you would see in the original movie, which I think
Yeah.
makes it more tangible. Versus this was just like it's more cinematic. It's made for the movies. That's what it is.
I mean, the production quality is insane. Like within the movie, like there's like replays of like all like the crazy kicks and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
so the whole thing is pretty nuts. And again, Chang is frightening. This little kid is a badass, and he's beat the shit out of everybody. So we know that him and Jaden are going to meet up at some point with the same scene. There's somebody like in the bad dragon crew before he gets to the finals that is told by their sensei to hurt him.
yeah.
And the kid's like, I could beat him, and he's like, I don't care, like we're hurting him. So he hurts his leg, gets DQ'd. Mr. Han does his little healing thing. Another good moment. I mean, the parenting in this movie is really strong between Mr. Han and Dre. I feel like the mom is rarely showing like strong parenting skills, but the connection between Mr. Han and Dre is really strong, and Dre is sharing with him that he's scared, he doesn't want to be scared anymore, and if he can just kind of have this chance to like, I guess, face his fears and stand up to the bully one more time, then he doesn't have to be scared anymore, which I thought was pretty mature of him to realize.
Yeah, yeah, I think that was a really good lesson because, right, Mr. Han saying you've proved everything you had to, you don't need to go any further. But he proved it to everyone else. He needed to prove it to himself, and that's why he wanted to go.
Yeah. So he gets to the main fight. He's kind of hobbling on his leg. Instead of a crane kick, he does like a even sicker like backflip kick, and he just like
Something that would probably take 15 years to master.
oh
He did it
oh
in a length of a 2.5 hour movie.
yeah. I mean, he's 12, right? He's a
Yeah.
12-year-old kid, so I don't know what's going on here. But the bully's now nice, of course. Actually, the one thing that really bummed me out was that they didn't show Jackie Chan embarrassing that sensei like they did in the original one. At the very end, Mr. Miyagi kind of like schools that John Kreese character,
Yeah.
but they just kind of like they don't like that guy didn't get his comeuppance really. The dragon sensei, although all of his students bow to Mr. Han, which I thought was, I guess, a different way to show it.
Yeah, I think it was intentional, at least I think, to show that those individual kids actually respected Mr. Han more so than their own teacher because of his approach.
Yeah, and perhaps maybe they'll join the Mr. Han dojo in the future. I
Part
actually
two.
saw.
Part
Hey,
two.
I don't know if you saw this. They're making another movie with Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio.
Oh, I did not see that.
Yeah.
That should be
So
exciting.
because I think that originally this wasn't supposed to be in the same universe, and it was just kind of like a retelling. And then I guess after the success of Cobra Kai, they're like, well, same universe. Let's
Yeah.
do it.
Let's make
So
more money. Yeah, that's
yeah.
what it is.
So maybe Jackie Chan shows up at the very end of Cobra Kai. That's going to be my prediction.
Oh, ooh, that'd be cool
In the series finale.
to tie it together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I'm trying to think about like how this movie aged from 2010. It's kind of hard to judge it because I think because it's not in America, it's in China. It's harder for me to really kind of grasp what aged well and what didn't. It doesn't really feel dated because it's almost like a period piece or just like a separate like fantasy world.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was hard to determine that, especially since like you have the original 40 years ago. Like I'm sure like there was some updates from then to the 2010 version. Um, I don't know about your thoughts in the original one. It was really bullying based on jealousy, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was where this one seemed to be more racially charged,
Mm,
and I think the bully, it's essentially said to um, young Dre that like don't interact with any of our kind of people. So I don't
yeah,
know,
that's
like
true.
that's kind of something that was like, well, maybe if you go to that, it was more racially charged versus like internal jealousy or something taught to someone. I guess you can argue that racism is kind of taught by our experiences, but I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
No, that's a good point. I forgot to highlight that, but he does kind of say like don't talk to any of our kind, essentially. And I mean, that's that kind of stuff obviously still happens today. So I think the movies has more timeless qualities because you have things like that. You have just kind of trying to fit in and like not knowing how to make friends sometimes. Like I think it's just like things that people can really relate to, right? Like wanting to, I think also just the experience of like wanting to be better or like just wanting to like, everybody kind of has that fantasy of like kind of standing up to the bully or just
Yeah.
like persevering and like overcoming obstacles. And so there wasn't anything like too like crazily outdated here. But that's a good point
Yeah.
about the racial tension. Um, what would you say best and worst parenting moment?
Uh, I would, for if you're looking from a parent to child moment, I think you mentioned when he goes to his love interest's house to apologize. I think the interaction between her and her father
Mm,
was very. I think that was really good. Was him saying essentially to her, because she made a promise to him that she'll go to the tournament, right, to see him
yeah,
compete, and
yeah.
that he came apologize, and the father said essentially, you can go, we don't break promises in this household. So I think not a main part of the story, if you will, or main character, but I think that was probably for me, one of the most like true stories of like proper parenting, if you will.
That's a great call out. I hadn't even considered that scene, but that's a good point. I like that. I think on the flip side, I feel like the mom was just kind of showing us what not to do when your kid's having a tough time.
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of experiences like that? I mean, even for me, I think my daughter just kind of dropping her off at daycare and like getting her used to like being in different environments that she's not comfortable in is something that I've been kind of dealing with. And kind like I guess I am kind of, because I can't talk to her yet, I am kind of taking like the mom stance of just like letting her get used to it. But yeah, you want to be able to obviously explain to them why this is happening and let them know it's okay. But yeah, I've been kind of trying to put her into situations to make her, a little bit uncomfortable in safe ways, so she gets used to feeling more comfortable in different situations.
Yeah. It was hard for me to distinguish um, from the mother's perspective, what is bad parenting versus what are challenges as a single parent, and especially in the environment when you don't get much context of what she's going through or why the decision she made. But yeah, I think that's a something that's a fine line too. Is okay, at some point we all need to be comfortable with change and comfortable in new environments, and sometimes we're just thrown into them, thrust into them, have to overcome it. So I think depending on your perspective, that could be her being a good parent saying this change is going to happen. You got to get used to it. So just find ways to deal with it.
Yeah,
Not in
yeah,
the best way, shape, or form, but
yeah.
yeah. So I could see both ways on that one.
What this movie really needed was like one scene of the mom like crying alone or like showing her like how that it's hard for her too, because you forget even with your own parents, right? Like they're
Yeah.
doing their best, but and they have their own shit that they've dealt with and their own traumas that they're dealing with. And so I think it took me just to this conversation to have more empathy for the mom. But like the reality was, she's a widow and she's having a hard time as well. So I think one scene of her confiding in Mr. Han a little bit more, just which would have humanized her more and made it and reminded us of like, oh, it's she's not just being an asshole. Like, this is hard for her.
Yeah. I think because a lot of time you saw her disciplining, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
kind of what it
yeah.
was.
Like tough, yeah, deal with it, like tough cookies kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, it's a form of tough love, and I can't relate or really understand as a single parent, right? What the challenges are and how you balance the tough love with like emotional support. And I think that's where having two parents, you get the benefit, and kind of Mr. Han falls into that role of being the second parent or mentor, if you will, that balances out the
Yeah.
interactions with the mother.
Favorite scene.
I mean, I think the fight scenes are always my favorite, just because of especially anything Jackie Chan has done is just like so fluid and it
Yeah,
looks so smooth from a fight scene perspective. Um, Outside of that, I would say the last interaction between Mr. Han and Dre when he is hurt at the tournament. I think that showing like it's really a culmination of all the lessons that you're trying to teach, and like he took ownership in that setting, said I can quit now but I'm not going to, because I still need to prove to myself. For me,
Yeah,
I think that's like that's a tearjerker a little bit. I started tearing up a little bit on that one.
totally. Yeah, I mean, we needed one. We needed one more scene of Mr. Han just getting busy, right? Like it would have been
Yeah.
great to see him kind of Jackie Chan do his thing one more time. I like the training montages. I'm a sucker for a good training montage, and even though it was a little fantastical at times, I thought that's probably my highlight.
Yeah, to that point, I really like when they were sitting in the beat up car and he was crying and upset, and Dre comes in and pokes the sticks in his face essentially,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
pulls him out of the car and
yeah.
starts that training again. I thought that was a really cool. The student becomes the teacher or the support at that point, and really kind of like forms that bonding relationship. I thought that was a pretty cool.
That was cool because he also like he helped him like wipe his face a little bit, like with the
Yeah,
sticks. Like it
yeah.
was like a whole thing. I did like that. Biggest life lesson. I mean, to me, it's got to be we can choose to get back up when life knocks us down. I don't know if you had anything else.
Yeah, I think that was the whole, moral of the story, if you will.
Yeah. Any other plot holes or nitpicks? I mean, the fact that he was too good at kung fu for the amount of time that he had
Yeah,
put into it, and I think like the mom, it's just, I think I needed more information about her job. Like she couldn't get another job in the States.
yeah,
Anything else that came to mind for you?
yeah. I mean, the biggest thing, like for me, to differentiate between karate and kung fu, like,
Hmm.
that got me. But yeah, I think the biggest plot is like the progression timeline of how he improved so much, and I think you get a little bit of like he showing like his dancing skills, right? So like
Hmm.
how maybe it would have been really cool if like how he took those skills to transition them to learning kung fu, and kind of maybe building upon that would have been really cool to see. But yeah, I think that the fast track progression, unless I would love to learn kung fu and be that mastery and
I mean,
that short of time.
if I could do a spinning back flip kick like that in a couple of months, sign me up.
Yeah, yeah,
Final thoughts on the movie.
yeah. I thought overall, I mean, it aligned very well with what the original was. So if you're a fan of the original, I think you're gonna like it. There's a lot of little nuggets of wisdom that you can pull from how the interaction between Mr. Han and Dre and their training, which like those are all things that I really really like. The biggest thing is it could have been shorter, right? Uh, while also trying to develop some of those characters. Overall, I thought it was it was entertaining to watch. You got a little bit
Yeah,
of everything with it.
yeah, I'd agree. I enjoyed it. I mean, definitely not as good as the original, despite essentially just remaking it beat for beat. I think there was just kind of something missing in the in the spirit of it. The fight scenes were pretty sweet though, so definitely worth watching. I feel the same way about Cobra Kai. Like the show, like the karate is way different in like they're
Oh yeah.
compared to the first movie. Like those kids are just doing like crazy stuff.
Yeah, and then their fight scenes are like 15 minutes long. I don't
Yeah,
know
yeah.
about you, but I'd be gassed on the floor. I'd probably be knocked out 3 times with the amount of kicks and punches to the face.
Oh yeah,
So like
yeah,
that, it's far fetched in that way, but
yeah.
it's the entertainment value of it.
Agreed. Yeah. All right, Matt. Well, this has been a lot of fun, man. Where can people go to connect with you or learn more about you? Anything that you'd like to share or promote?
Yeah, I mean, bulk of what I do is just posting on LinkedIn. So check it out on LinkedIn. Matt Percia, Wellbeing Ninja. Really just talking about anything wellness, workplace well-being, and trying to get people healthier. So
Awesome. Well, I'll link to that in the show notes. Matt Percia, ladies and gentlemen. Matt, thank you so much.
thanks, Don. It's been a pleasure.